Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
Yes. Yes.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. It's been a lot of drinking and eating.
Yeah. It has been a weekend of celebration.
We're in Palm Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Celebrating our mom's birthdays.
Which are very close together.
In a house in a nice part of town.
Yeah.
But if I had to give this score a house a score out of 10.
It needs some renovations.
Well, what would you give it out of 10?
I would give it 4.5.
I would give it 5 out of 10.
Okay. All right.
It looks like it was maybe built in the 70s, and they haven't done anything to it since then.
Yeah, in the interior, for sure.
And it's a really poor design. It's not ideal.
Yes.
But we're still having a nice time.
But the outside's nice.
You know who else's birthday it is? Today.
Today's the 26th, yeah?
Diana Ross.
Oh, Ms. Ross.
What does she mean to you?
Oh, she means mahogany to me. There was a significant chunk of my childhood where I was obsessed with the music of the Supremes and therefore branched out into Motown, of course. Every time I think of her, I feel sad that she wasn't in more films because, the Wiz I feel is a bit compromised, but Mahogany and Lady Sings the Blues are pretty damn good.
Yeah. Her music, I mean, of all the divas of her era, like, I would clump her in with Aretha Franklin, Patti LaBelle, Chaka Khan, Dionne Warwick, Gladys Knight. She's not my favorite of the group. Her music was a lot more like pop.
It's poppy. It was, to please white people, of course, in the early part of her career. But
yeah, Patty's definitely more my flavor. But, I mean, Diana Ross, she has a lot of songs I do like.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, especially from, like, her, 80s stuff. Like, Swept Away.
She's one of those people that deserves the term icon, which is thrown away. All these drag race queens, you can't just be on TV and call yourself an icon. You can't just do a couple years worth of shows for whatever local city you're in and be an icon. Diana Ross is an icon.
I mean, I would agree, but
Whatever you need to say to yourself to get through the day.
Oh. The top article or the top story on CNN this morning, the headline read, "Customers now face a radically different tipping culture compared to a few years ago." So the article basically talks about how everyone wants a tip now, which is sort of accelerated by the fact that a lot of these smaller businesses use platforms like Square. It's like when you tap to pay for something at various types of stores, it's very easy to incorporate a page that asks if you want to leave a tip. So it's just easier for different types of establishments to ask for a tip. And then the article talks about, as customers, how it's awkward because during the pandemic, many of us felt like we should tip more.
Yeah.
To help with, just the chaos, and that became sort of a normal thing that everyone tipped more during the pandemic. Especially like picking up food because we couldn't sit in the restaurant. And now that things have opened back up again, there's this weird transition from probably not tipping as much as I used to, combined with everyone wants a tip. Like even customer service people. So you go to the hardware store and they're asking for a tip, or...
Well, I noticed at Starbucks now, that it's automatically when you pay with the card, it asks you if you want a tip, and the baristas, I noticed, is always like, it's going to ask you some questions. They don't say it's going to ask for a tip.
Well, because it's new for them,
right? So
it's awkward.
It's awkward.
Versus like Coffee Bean, they've been asking for tips for forever. So yeah, it's awkward for them. I also think this 20% idea seems, I don't know. I feel like, tipping. Yeah, I've been on a rant before about tipping, but I feel like it's odd that people who don't give great service want a tip.
I just think it's odd that we don't automatically pay people a living wage, so that we wouldn't have to depend on that, because, I've had an extremely rude service in Europe, but, it's also they're getting paid to be there, and do I want to come eat here? Sure, or not. I don't know. It doesn't. They shouldn't have to be captive to my mercurial ways. I don't want anybody to feel captive towards my whim. So I don't. It's not that it's rude service. I just don't mind people. I don't like when people feel like they have to bend over backwards to please me. I don't know.
You know what I think makes sense is, like, if you want to sit at a restaurant where you're being served, then I think you should pay for that. And the staff should be paid accordingly. Like, they should be paid a living wage, but we're also charging enough that,
Yeah, of course.
you know, the establishment can pay. But I like the restaurants where it's like, you know, you go up and order your food, and then when it's ready, it's brought to you. And there's not a lot of, like, if you need condiments or drinks, you just go and get them.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, that makes more sense. Mm-hmm. And then you tip, you know, maybe a less significant amount. Because some places, you know, food is expensive. Mm-hmm. And you think, like, for the two of us to go get burger and fries somewhere, it could easily cost, like, $60. Mm-hmm. So then you think, you want me to give you a $12 tip, and all you did was, I mean, you did nothing. Because we had to get our own condiments in those little cups. We had to dispense them. Like, you just handed me a greasy bag, and, like, I have to give you an extra $12 for that? I don't know. That seems like a lot.
Again, we could avoid all of that discomfort if we did pay everyone a living wage. But
now I sound cheap. But
no,
I will continue to say I think it's weird, like, that everyone wants a tip.
I don't think you sound cheap. It's just... What
you just handed me a cup of like, you literally poured 2 cups of like black coffee, and based on the total, I would be giving you $2. Mm-hmm. Just because you poured me, like, I mean, you literally just poured black coffee into a cup and handed it to me, and you didn't say good morning or thank you.
Sure.
I was somewhere the other day, and the lady didn't acknowledge me. And you know me, I stand there for a while.
Yeah, no, I know you do.
And awkwardly wait for them to say something. And then when they don't, I go, okay, well, give me this. And then she didn't acknowledge that. And she didn't say thank you. Mm-hmm. And then, oh my gosh, I stopped. One more thing. You know, on Willoughby and kind of like La Brea, there's that little area that has like a fancy coffee shop and then vinyl record store. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
One day, like maybe a month ago, I stopped to get coffee there. Because I just thought, well, I've never tried it, and it was not busy, and there was parking right in front. And I walk up to that lady. She did not acknowledge me at all. She just stared at me. Mm-hmm. And I stared at her. And then finally I just said, like, I want a mocha. Because it was just on the menu. There's no size, nothing. She didn't ask me what kind of milk I wanted. Because at nicer places, they always verify. Especially in LA.
Well, yes.
So she didn't. Then she doesn't tell me the total. She just stands there. So I look at the screen. $13. And I said, this little cup of coffee is $13? And she said, yeah. And I said, I don't want it. And then I walked out. But you think if I would have, and for sure it would have asked me to give a tip. So I would have tipped like almost $3 on shitty service for a hot beverage that would have been in a small to-go cup. Because I saw those cups. $13?
Yeah.
So it would have been $15.
I can already tell you that place is probably not destined to last. But yeah, there is a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, moving on to something more serious. So Jonathan Majors was arrested yesterday, Saturday, for alleged domestic dispute.
In Chelsea.
A 30-year-old woman informed the police she was assaulted and that she had minor injuries to her head and neck. He's denied it, like his spokespeople. The statement they released said, while Mr. Majors, they said that he is, I don't want to get this wrong. He has done nothing wrong. We look forward to clearing his name and clearing this up. And then like 30 minutes ago, I saw that they said that he has video proof that he did not attack this woman. I hope that's true, and I hope that he still doesn't end up like Nate Parker.
Well, yeah.
Where it's like just because he's attached to this that his career's ruined, even though he didn't do anything or wasn't charged with anything. But yeah, I mean, there's not enough information to know what happened.
No.
But he has been released.
But also, like, what was going on where somebody felt the need to record what was happening then?
Yeah.
So.
Oh, but he's done promos for the Army. And this morning, the Army said that they were going to not drop those. Because they feel like, until they know what's going on. Which I guess is fair. I mean, they filmed these promos and then now this shit happens. So they want to make sure that he's not guilty of anything. But isn't that crazy how, like, in an instant...
In an instant, yeah.
Because I'm sure anything that he's up for right now as far as acting, they're probably like, oh, let's hold off on that.
Let's wait a minute.
Let's wait.
Yeah, because he's on the rise. He's not cemented yet in being able to do whatever he wants. So,
yeah.
Well, I don't know. But that's good to hear. If they have that footage, get that shit out there. Nip that in the bud.
All right, films released we didn't cover. Something called Furies? Or Furries?
Furies.
Furies.
Furries. Furries would be 2 R's. It's directed by Veronica No, a vehicle for which she herself stars in. Notable Vietnamese actor-director. I think that's her 3rd film. It's Netflix's first original Vietnamese title.
Oh, wow.
But we did not watch that.
Chantilly Bridge.
Which is a sequel to Chantilly Lace. I think 1993 original, starring a really great cast of notable ladies and directed by Linda Yellen. The sequel, Chantilly Bridge, is also directed by her, but some of the ladies in there are Ali Sheedy, Lindsay Krause, Jo Beth Williams.
The Five Devils.
I saw this at Cannes last year, starring Adele Exarchopoulos. It's the 2nd film directed by Leah Maisius after 2017's Ava. She's, of course, a very notable screenwriter as well, kind of a hot ticket item in France. This was in Director's Fortnight, and I like Adele enough, in that it has a really interesting kind of witchy premise, but it kind of doesn't establish its own rules well enough. I think it's worth a watch, and if we had had time, I would have suggested we should, but because I'd be very curious to see what you think. And there's also a very strong queer component I liked, but at the end of the day, I think I needed it to feel a lot more intelligent than it does.
Last Sentinel.
This is from an Estonian director, Tanel Toom, starring Kate Bosworth. So that might be all you need to know there.
The Lost King.
It's a new Stephen Frears, who's pretty hit or miss for me, but Sally Hawkins stars in it, and it's about a group of people that are obsessed with Richard III, is all I know about it, which is a fantastic Shakespearean play, of course. We didn't watch this, but I was interested in doing so.
Reggie.
This is a documentary about the Reggie Jackson, the baseball player. And it's directed by Alex Stapleton, who I saw his first documentary about Roger Corman, Corman's World, which I highly recommend. But
Tori and Lokita.
This is another depressing new movie from the notable Belgian directing duo, the Dardenne brothers. I saw this at Cannes last year. It was fine. It's short and depressing.
Lastly, The Tutor.
The Tutor, directed by Jordan Ross, who I am not familiar with, starring Garrett Hedlund. And as the title indicates, it's about a tutor whose student becomes obsessed with them.
All right, you have many projects of interest. We Live in Time.
Yes. What is... now I have to think.
John Crowley.
Oh, John Crowley, who directed Brooklyn, has Andrew Garfield and Florence Pugh starring in their next film.
A John Woo project.
John Woo, you've seen some John Woo stuff. You've seen Face Off.
Okay.
But he was much more notable before he started doing Hollywood productions as well. But he's remaking his classic film, The Killer, which starred Chow Yun-fat, and Andrew Garfield's attached to that, as is Natalie Emmanuel, who I think we saw in one or two of the Fast and the Furious films.
There's a Vertigo remake.
Yeah, I'm not clear who the director is, but Robert Downey Jr. is attached to star.
Does Cameron Crowe have a new project?
He does. He's been apparently developing in secret a Joni Mitchell biopic.
Oh, Janis Jorp, or
no, that's Janis Joplin.
Oh, from 30 Rock.
30 Rock, yeah.
Joni Mitchell. Oh, that's a Janet Jackson song, "Son of a Gun." That lady.
That's Carly Simon.
Oh, then who the hell's Joni Mitchell?
You've heard... You've heard Joni Mitchell. I feel like she'd make a very boring biopic, but
Oh.
I'm trying to think of what song you'd. Oh yeah, "Got Till It's Gone." She's on that.
Yeah, that is Joni Mitchell.
But Carly Simon, "Son of a Gun," from.
Oh, Carly Simon, Son of a Gun, and then there's a Joni Mitchell sample on
Yes.
Got Till It's Gone.
That's right.
But I was thinking of Carly Simon.
Yes, with the mouth and the Warren Beatty reference.
Yes. Party Girls?
Party.
There's a 4K restoration.
Parker Posey's classic cult
that
film
movie.
is getting re-released with a new 4K restoration. That's exciting to me.
There's a Robert Pattinson, Robert Downey Jr. project.
Yes. Who is the director?
Adam McKay.
Oh, Adam McKay from Don't Look Up. Apparently doing this big budget new film that's supposed to speak to our times, of course.
And then Mother Mary.
Mother Mary sounds very exciting to me. New David Lowery film, who did The Green Knight, which you didn't see, the Pete's Dragon remake, which I don't know that ultimately served him well. A Ghost Story, which I really liked, even though it stars Casey Affleck. It's his new film's got Anne Hathaway and Michaela Cole. Michaela Cole, you know, from Bubblegum, and you didn't watch I Think I Might Destroy You. And she's in the new Black Panther in a supporting role. But this is David Lowery's new film is described as an epic pop melodrama following a fictional musician played by Hathaway and her relationship with an iconic fashion designer played by Cole.
God.
So that sounds right up my alley.
Okay, there were several movies watched for fun. The first one is a rewatch. Whitefire.
Okay, so I love this film because ever since we discovered during the pandemic, because Arrow Video put it out, sent me a copy and we randomly put it on, and immediately we watched it several times, but we watched it with the visiting family last night, and this is something you need to have razor sharp wits, lots of coffee for. This is not a downer film. This is not a
Because everyone had taken marijuana and was tired.
I think this is not a film to watch when you're tired, but it's trash.
Continuing on our Christopher Guest train ride, we watched Waiting for Guffman.
Yes.
What year is that?
97, I believe.
I enjoy it.
It's very good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Christopher Guest is Corky is really
Corky
funny.
St. Clair. He's kind of the star of his own thing.
In this one, yeah.
In this one.
For sure.
But all the other, it's fun. Catherine O'Hara and...
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard is a gift.
He's always the same, but it's perfect.
Yeah, and Parker Posey, of course.
Parker Posey, she's the most flexible I've ever seen her.
Yeah.
Like physically.
Yeah.
She's dancing and doing the splits and high kicks. You watched Fuzz?
Yeah, you were in and out for this. We had actually a Raquel Welch double feature yesterday. But this is starring, reuniting her with Burt Reynolds after 100 Rifles, whom she did not like. It's based on Ed McBain, which was a pseudonym for, I forget the author's real name, set in Boston. And this, I thought, was a lot of fun as well. I'm trying to think of all the people in it, but basically there are several different things going on that kind of tie together at the end. But Yul Brynner is this... He's the deaf man who's trying to killing a bunch of the city's commissioners for money, and he's the main baddie. Raquel Welch is called in as a decoy detective to catch this serial rapist.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I don't know. I was very entertained by it.
Oh, good. The Doom Generation.
Because I'm revisiting most of Parker's early career, she's in one scene of this, but it's not my favorite Greg Araki, but it's a lot of fun, and I like James Duvall. It's James Duvall and Rose McGowan, and then they are a couple that take on Jonathan Sheck and go on this road trip and has a lot of bisexual exploring in it and murder. Coven. I'd forgotten about this until he announced a new project. Argentinian director Pablo Aguero, who directed Ava Doesn't Sleep. This film premiered at the San Sebastian Film Festival in 2020, which of course was in the middle of the pandemic. Akalar, which means Witches' Sabbath. It landed on Netflix. I didn't even realize it. I think technically on Netflix it's called Coven of Sisters, and it's basically set in the Basque Country about these young girls that are, forced to admit to being witches, and then they commit suicide instead of getting burned at the stake.
Then you watch something called I Married a Witch.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch this forever. It's a French director, René Clair, who came to the U.S. to make films during World War II. And this stars Veronica Lake and Frederick March. And Veronica Lake is a witch who her and her father were burned at the stake, and centuries later are able to come back in human form. And she had put a curse on the lineage of the man that burned her. And then she tries to make Frederick March, who is the last member of that lineage, to fall in love with her. So it's kind of a screwball comedy. You can see where ideas of Bewitched came from this film. But yes, also very entertaining, very short.
You watched A Low Down Dirty Shame.
Yes, I'd never seen it before.
Starring Keenan Ivory Wayans.
Which he also directed.
Jada Pinkett. Sally Richardson.
Sally Richardson, who looks fantastic. Kind of even is giving me Pam Grier 70s era with her look.
Sure.
And transfixing, of course.
You did not care for this movie.
I definitely did not care for this film.
It's supposed to be like a action.
Yeah, he's an ex-cop who is now a private investigator, and he's approached by Charles S. Dutton, his old partner, to take care of a bad guy that had eluded him, which also involves his ex-love interest, Sally Richardson. But Jada Pinkett is his plucky secretary, who's also secretly in love with him. But there is a character, I have to look up his name, I forgot.
I saw this movie, I think, when it came out, maybe?
1994.
Oh, so I would have seen it maybe in like 97, and I don't recall enjoying it.
No, it's Kim Wayans is also in it. She has one small part
I always like her.
As one department store worker. Oh God, what's his name? He died of HIV-related causes right after it. Corwin Hawkins. He plays Jada's roommate, and who's also, I think, a drag queen. And it's highly homophobic.
I can imagine, yeah.
And the sissified nature of the two queer characters, because there's a white guy that pops up too, it's to me it's as skin crawling as watching blackface films in a Shirley Temple film. It is so egregiously homophobic. But that said, I think the slap in the face is this young man died right after that, and
after having been made fun of.
Right, but also there's just having the representation. I guess it was something, but this is definitely one that hasn't aged well, and it's not well written.
Well, something else egregious. We watched Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh, this is poo-poo. This got a 4K restoration from Arrow Video. We've had it for months. I remember watching it with my dad as a kid and hating it. Like, he really hated it.
It's bad. It's really bad.
It is caca.
Robert De Niro as the monster is not the worst part. I think, well, Kenneth Branagh.
Kenneth Branagh, who was focusing on apparently exercising.
Yeah, it seems like he was really focused on keeping the carbs down, because he's shirtless quite a bit, and he looks good.
He looks good, but
the writing and the acting, and it's just
well, both him and Tom Hulce play this, because it's set in 1793. Play medical students that are 20 years too old to be.
They look mature.
Especially Tom Hulce looks terrible.
Especially since people's life expectancy back then was so low. It seems like they're really old to be in medical school.
These actors were already aged out of the life expectancy of this period. And then, of course, this is famously where, because Helena Bonham Carter plays a role that Emma Thompson would have been, but she went to do Carrington. And, of course, very famously ruined the marriage of Branagh and Thompson.
I think this would be fun to watch with people and drinking and make fun of it. It's still not. It wouldn't be a good time, but you couldn't watch it seriously. It was like on an airplane. Oh no.
It was nominated for best special effects, but Francis Ford Coppola was supposed to direct this after Bram Stoker's Dracula, and then he distanced himself from it because he didn't agree with what Branagh was doing. The screenwriter Frank Darabont also was not happy with this.
It's so many hammy performances.
Oh God, we kept rewinding Ian Holmes screaming.
Oh God.
Oh my God.
Then we rewatched Trog with Joan Crawford.
Well, you'd never seen it.
I've seen Trog before.
Oh, you have? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's not a good movie.
No.
But it's fun because Joan is playing the character in earnest.
Oh, as she was wont
Like
to do.
she took her craft seriously.
She did.
She styled her wig.
She's an anthropologist.
Who does like medical procedures. It's very confusing.
It's very confusing. She seems more like a social worker that needs to retire, but...
And then her costuming is... She's wearing like smocks.
Very colorful smocks.
Very colorful smocks. And then her wig is like this ashy blonde.
Not too far from the color of the wig in Berserk.
She looks crazy. Mm-hmm. But it's fun to see her.
Of course.
And the two young men there's like these handsome young men. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. Them... The decisions these people make are so stupid.
Oh, and is it Michael Gough who plays this... I guess you'd call him a fundamentalist Christian who's... I don't know who he's affiliated with. He just shows up to announce that this troglodyte they find in the cave should be killed. Because
I think you could delve into like the subtext of what they're talking about. It's very interesting.
Yeah. But it's not. And directed by Freddie Francis, who would go on to do Doctor and the Devils.
I think the problem is they made it like they're taking themselves seriously. Yes. And when this should have been kind of over the top, like unintentional camp, it's a little too serious.
The only thing, because Joan is very obsessed with having a hypo gun. She keeps, bring me my hypo gun. She says, I think at least 3 times.
And lastly, the drowning pool.
Yeah, you guys went to bed. My dad and I stayed up and watched the drowning pool, which I was surprised at how boring and hammy it is. But it's a 1975 sequel to the earlier Harper, starring Paul Newman, who's kind of a signature character in Newman's oeuvre, starring I think the 8th collaboration he did with his wife Joanne Woodward. It was just pretty dull.
All right, let's take a break. So the secret film was something we had on the Raquel Welch poll for one of the live reviews like 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And this is the selection I would have voted for.
It's also the one I voted for.
I normally give an intro and I didn't pull it up. But anyway, it's the film Mother, Jugs, and Speed, which is from 1976. Who directed it?
The great Peter Yates.
What else has Peter Yates done?
If you've never seen his 1967 debut, Robbery, highly recommended. But he's probably best remembered for directing a very famous film called Bullet, which has some extremely well done car chase sequences starring white Steve McQueen. I also highly recommend The Friends of Eddie Coyle, starring Robert Mitchum. And The Hot Rock is a great heist film. You know him for directing the Sigourney Weaver headlined Eyewitness in 1981. He also directed Cher in Suspect in 1987. I think a lot of his 80s work fell off, even though one of his greatest achievements was probably 1983's The Dresser, which was nominated for several Academy Awards. I like his Peter Benchley adaptation, The Deep, starring Nick Nolte and Jacqueline Bisset. And then I don't like so much John and Mary with Dustin Hoffman and Mia Farrow. Anyway, but he is... This was definitely something I've been wanting to watch for years. I love Peter Yates. And it was written by Tom Mankiewicz, who's, of course, related to the Mankiewicz Hollywood clan.
The log line is competition between privately owned Los Angeles, California ambulance companies is played for humor. It's
kind of played for humor. This would make a great double feature with Bringing Out the Dead.
Then on the poster I see it says the F&B ambulance company is looking for a few good men, but they will take anybody they can get. This is supposed to be like a black comedy. Mm-hmm. It has some pretty disturbing plot points.
It definitely does. I think that the later DC Cab was trying to invoke feelings that this film had as well, with Mr. T.
Yeah. So, well, the basic story is there is a ambulance company in LA called F&B, and which I think is like Fishbine.
Yeah, for the owner.
Played by Alan Garfield.
Who's quite funny, I think.
The movie is basically him running this ambulance company, and his main ambulance drivers are Bill Cosby and J.R. Ewing from Dallas. What is his name? Larry Hagman. And then they have like the secretary, the person who dispatches all the calls, played by Raquel Welch. And then Harvey Keitel shows up as like an ex-detective / veteran.
He's like basically on suspension for drug-related charges.
Yeah, so he had a pretty nice career. He's a veteran who became a detective, I believe, for LAPD.
Yeah.
And then he's been suspended for what you just said. So he's looking for work. And he shows up at F&B and he's given a job. So Mother, Jugs, and Speed, Bill Cosby is Mother, Harvey Keitel is Speed, and then Raquel Welch is Jugs.
Which is a nickname that she is trying to get away
She
from.
does not like. But we basically get maybe like 6 or 7 like ambulance runs. It's kind of a series of the comedy part of it is the setup because we go do these like which we can get into because overall I did like this movie.
I really liked this film.
There's a lot happening and a lot of it's funny or shocking.
Yes.
But yeah, so side plots are there is a rival ambulance company called Unity, which is black owned and operated. And Unity versus F&B, they're trying to appeal to the city of Los Angeles to get a major contract to be like the go-to ambulance for the city. And it all culminates with the two of them meeting like a city councilman, and the city councilman says, well, both entities are not big enough to handle this huge area. We're going with a different, more established ambulance company. So these two rival ambulance companies agreed to join forces to get the contract, and the city agrees. And this is at the end of the movie. So right when they've shook hands, like, yeah, we'll join forces, they get a call that back at F&B's headquarters, J.R. Ewing is like suicidal. Like he's holding
Alan Garfield's wife
hostage with a gun. And
with another disgraced driver.
And he's shooting at folks. It gets pretty dark. He ends up getting killed. And then in the end, we see that F&B did join forces, and then they changed their name to FU. And then because of Harvey Keitel's assistance in that final hostage situation, the LAPD bring him back on as a detective. He also starts a relationship with Raquel Welch. So we see in the end that they're together. And then for Raquel Welch, I guess having ambulance, or like female paramedics or EMT workers back then was unheard of. So she is secretly going to EMT school. She gets her certificate and she asks her boss, Alan Garfield, like, make me a paramedic. And he's like, hell no. So she gets mad and steals an ambulance. And while she's in the ambulance, probably my favorite scene of the movie is she has stolen this ambulance and she's driving around with the siren on. And 2 sheriff officers see her and they're hitting on her. And they're like, oh, a woman? You're responding to a code 3 by yourself? We'll help you. We'll follow you. So, of course, she panics because they're going to realize she stole this ambulance. So we have like a chase scene where she has to evade them.
She's trying to get away from them.
And it's pretty clever how she evades them.
Well, with she didn't realize Harvey is like resting in the back.
Yeah, Harvey Keitel's character was taking a nap in the back of the ambulance, so she didn't know it wasn't empty. So in the end, he ends up pretending to be... She outruns the cops enough so she can pull over. He wraps himself in bandages, and she's like, see, I did have a call. And they let her ass go. But, yeah...
I thought she had nice chemistry with Harvey, who I thought was kind of fetching in this.
Harvey's super good look. I mean, he's young and he looks very handsome.
This is it's after Taxi Driver, which I think even though he's playing a long-haired pimp in that.
Raquel's beautiful, obviously. She kind of reminded me of Jacqueline Smith.
She did with her styling. Apparently, she really lobbied for this role because originally they wanted Valerie Perrine.
Well, we watched, 4 Raquel movies? Or 5?
I've watched like 8 recently.
Oh, 8. This, for me, the ones I've seen, this is the best of her.
Of her, yeah.
Yeah.
I like her. She's more supporting in Fuzz, but I like
not including Myra Breckenridge.
Oh, Myra Breckenridge, yes.
But we haven't watched that yet. I mean, again, we've seen it before, but
yes.
Anyway, I'm going to go through my notes. We learned that I was surprised to learn that the way this film's telling it back in the 70s, when an ambulance shows up, they expect their payment before they take away. Yeah. And we're told that it's $42.50 plus 50 cents per mile. The other thing we learn is that these ambulance drivers are crooked as hell.
Oh, yeah.
They're all taking like bribes from different places to get the calls first, and they get kickbacks to the lawyers. There's like a lawyer who pays for information, like who they can go. Basically, like an ambulance chaser who doesn't chase ambulances. He tells them, or he asks them where they're going. And then, yeah, so that was super interesting. So the first scene we get of like of the calamitous nature is J.R. Ewing and his buddy get a call to this, like, there's this black woman and a bunch of her friends playing cards, and she slips and falls, but she lives like on the fourth floor of a walk up, and they have to get her down. And it goes exactly how you would think. They have her on this gurney going down the stairs, and she slides. But the way it's shot
is so good. Because one of them falls through the stairs and gets bit by a rat.
And now he has rabies. It's so ridiculous.
But it's pretty well done. And the group of black women are like, do you guys need help?
Do you need help? And then when they ask for payment, they're like, no.
We think you spent that $42.50.
We're not paying you until you get her down. That was pretty good. Then Bill Cosby's character has this thing about terrorizing the nuns.
It's called buzzing the nuns.
Buzzing the nuns. So there's like a convent nearby, and the nuns always walk across the street at the same time, like a bunch of ducks. Mm-hmm. And every time they do, he drives up and like honks the siren at them. But actually, an emotional moment, I kind of got teary-eyed, is Bill Cosby's partner is played by Bruce Davison, who's really cute in this movie too, because he's so young. And he has this little ratty mustache. He ends up getting killed
by Toni Basil.
For those who don't know, she sings, "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine."
Yeah, it's a pop star in the 80s, but in the 70s she was trying to be an actor.
And she looks pretty.
She does. She kind of give me Lady Gaga.
And
she had a bit part in Myra Breckenridge too.
Oh, maybe she was friendly with Raquel.
Probably.
But she plays a junkie who needs drugs, so she calls 911. And when they get there, she basically holds Bruce Davison hostage, and he's like, "Man, we don't keep those kind of drugs on the rig, but I can get you some help." And she shoots and kills him, and then there's a shootout, and the cops come, and they're basically like about to arrest Bill Cosby because he had a gun. But then one of the sheriff's officers is friendly with him,
played by L.Q. Jones,
and he's friendly with him, and he also like bribes him for calls. So they kind of rub each other's backs, and he can see that Bill Cosby's upset about his partner, so he lets him go. I thought that was sweet, and then you can see that.
Yeah, that's when he goes back and has a conversation with the nuns, and
then you can tell that because they tell him, "Okay, you can go ahead and leave," and Bill Cosby's like, "No, I'm taking my dead friend to the morgue. Like no one else is gonna take him." And then as he's driving, he's all quiet. And when he pulls up on the nuns, he doesn't run his siren.
And they look so confused.
They're confused. And then when he gets back to the station, all the guys are kind of like, well, not all the guys. J.R. Ewing's a dick.
Hagman plays such a gross person in this.
And he's giving him a hard time, like kind of razzing him about whatever. And Bill Cosby whoops his ass, like knocks him through a wall.
You know, Bill Cosby, they were trying to get Gene Hackman for that role. And Gene Hackman read the script and said, like, I forget what set he was already on. He's like, "Look, I'm overworked, but there's this funny guy I've seen in this series." He recommended Cosby.
I think he's good in the movie.
It's so sad watching Bill Cosby because I really like him and I think he's so good. I love his 70s work. But, you know, he did this other film with Robert Culp called Hickey and Boggs, which is really worth watching.
It's funny to see him play grittier characters who are doing like...
But you can tell he put his thing on it because there are things that Gene Hackman in this role wouldn't have said.
No.
So, you know.
Yeah, Bill Cosby brings a lot to it. There's a funny scene. So the guy who runs the ambulance company, he goes on this rant about veterans and how we should respect them in the war. He's one of those people who's just blowing smoke up everyone's ass. Like, what do you know about war? And then when he's telling this to Harvey Keitel, who actually is a veteran, and then Harvey tells him, "Actually, I thought the war was stupid and immoral.
And I hated every minute of it."
And I hated every minute of it. And then the boss is like, "Oh, well, I mean, I guess everyone has their own perspective." Like, you dummy.
I really liked Harvey in this. The three leads are, I think, so good.
J.R. Ewing's character is such a creep. He's just a creep, like a misogynist. At one point, he tries to rape. So they get a call to show up at a college dorm, and so they pick up this beautiful young woman who's OD'd on drugs, And at first, JR wouldn't let Harvey Keitel drive the rig. But then when they pick up this girl, he's like, you can drive. And immediately you know what that means. He wants to sit in the back and fondle this girl. And then Harvey's driving and he recognizes that JR is not responding to him. And he pulls the rig over. And we see that JR was trying to rape this like passed out woman. And then of course Harvey gets them together. But then before that even happens, Bill Cosby's talking to him, which, you know, in hindsight, knowing what Bill Cosby was accused and convicted of, it's kind of creepy because he tells J.R. Ewing, one day we're all going to buy you something that won't fight back, like a quadruple amputee.
A double amputee, yeah.
Yeah, and then after that we get Bill Cosby, he stops at the Institute of Sexual Awareness, and he's like, they look like prostitutes.
They are, basically.
And he's getting a massage, and they're like using dildos on him, and not like in his orifices. Well, kind of. They're putting them in his ears. And then he's injecting them with drugs.
Well, vitamin B12, the girl asked for.
But it's just so weird watching him do that now when we know more about him.
Yes.
It's funny, a lot of these older movies, people drinking and driving was like not a big deal. Because Bill Cosby keeps a cooler in his rig. And he's doing nothing but drinking beer the entire time. I don't know. Just a bunch of silly scenes. Like when Raquel first does her first run, they get a call to
That's a good scene. That's a nice emotional scene, too. In highlighting something that is no longer done.
No, what you're talking about is not the first scene. The first scene is she gets a call for a man who zips up his penis.
There's something about Mary, yeah.
But then it's followed up with a very emotional scene where they get a call for a woman who's going into labor at a grocery store, and they're not going to make it. They get to a hospital, and that hospital is like, we don't do obstetrics. You better take her to county, which is now we now know illegal. But back then they had no choice. So as they're transporting this woman from one hospital to the other, she goes into labor. So Raquel delivers the baby, but then the woman is experiencing like massive hemorrhaging and dies. Yeah, this movie, like the tone just swings from one end to the next.
But I mean, I think that's the nature of that kind of job.
It's effective because I mean, I felt rattled. Like, whoa, I can't believe I was laughing, and now I'm like watery eyed.
Well, because humans are funny and also despairing, but. Which I don't know. I really like. I don't mind.
Bill Cosby had a funny line when they're at the city council meeting, and the two ambulance companies are trying to, like, appeal to the city council, and of course, the black business, the councilman's like, "Well, we've taken into account that you are a minority business, and we want to like highlight that." But then the other guy, Alan
Garfield,
he's like, "Well,
we got a woman.
We got a woman." We got a woman. Do you have a woman? And then Bill Cosby gets up and he says, well, a woman's got to be worth at least 4 blacks, 3 Latinos, and a Chinaman. Yeah. It's so funny because so much of this movie we would not write today. Like, you know, we would all say it's so inappropriate, but...
And, you know, for at the time rated PG, because it's, of course, before PG-13, but...
There's also another paramedic who's saying that he's preparing for medical school. Did you get the sense he was gay?
That he was gay.
I thought he was gay, and then when he's at the city council meeting, he gets up and says that he's really looking forward to working one-on-one with one of the black EMTs.
Well, he says, an Afro-American.
An Afro-American.
Like, yeah... Which they try to write off as brotherly love, but it's like, that man's a homosexual, and that's Alan Warnick.
I thought he was cute.
He was cute. And then, of course, you didn't mention Dick Butkus.
Oh, yeah, who's, like, from Texas. Yeah, I was very surprised by this movie.
I was, too. It wasn't... I've been wanting to watch it for years. It was not the... Because it's the way it's advertised, it makes you think it's a screwball comedy, but it really isn't.
Well, it is. I mean, it has moments, but yeah, there's a lot of emotion.
And and again, by the end is a little. I don't really care for Larry Hagman holed up in the fire. Like to me, that is a little. It almost just goes a little too over the top, and you don't need it. I think, but I still really liked it.
Yeah, and it was fun seeing L.A. So long ago. What would you give this movie?
3.5.
I think I would give it. What would I give it? I guess 3 out of 5.
Oh, yeah. So I liked it more than you.
I think the tone's all over the place, and I would love... I tried to look on the extra bonus features to see if there was like a director's commentary because I don't know. I don't know that all of this is deliberate. I think it seems kind of like a mess that kind of turned into a beautiful disaster.
Well, I don't mind that though.
I don't mind it either, but I think I would give it 3 just because this doesn't feel as deliberate as it seems watching in 2023. I think it was just they got some major people in there and
it became what it did.
And it did what it did, but I mean, it's kind of a mess. Like,
sure, but I don't know. I think this was a great double feature between Mother Jugs and Speed and Fuzz.
I would highly recommend it if you can find it. I don't know that it's streaming.
It's
anywhere.
not streaming, and I don't know if that's Cosby related. Just nobody wants to swoop in and kind of recuperate this film, maybe.
Well, what do you have for the week? We have like 5 videos.
We have a lot of content dropping this week.
Dungeons and Dragons, Ennis, Maine, 1001, Smoking Causes Coughing, Rye Lane. Yeah, there are like 5 reviews coming up.
And there are a couple other ones I feel like I'd like to cover. Tetris with Taron, what's his face?
Oh, I like Taron Egerton.
Yeah, there's a horror film on Shudder called The Unheard. Because next week is a busy week, but then the first week of April, not a lot coming out.
Well, you're going to be gone, right?
I'm going to be gone, but we'll probably...
Did you talk about why you're going to be gone? You're going to wait.
I think it's pretty much set in stone now. Like I have a time, and...
Well, the reason you've been watching all of these Parker Posey films...
is I'm going to interview her in New
flying
York.
to New York to interview her for Spin Magazine.
Yes.
And you're also going to watch her new play.
She's in a play that's actually wrapping up. I think she just has 3 more nights in it after I'm done.
But you're also... It's a retrospective on her career, but then you're also going to talk about the new play, and you're going to see her new movie.
Next weekend, Beau is Afraid, the Ari Aster film.
So it's all going to be put together into one package.
Yeah. So that is exciting, but I'm sure we'll probably have coverage on the Ben Affleck film Air, which you're not seeing, I'm seeing alone. And Paint, that'll be the week after with Owen Wilson.
Okay.
But the first week of April's kind of...
Do you have anything else to say?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, ta-ta.